We're going to start this morning with our keynote panel, but just before I do that, and Lorraine reminds me, in the next session, can I just get an indication, is Michelle Meir here? Okay, so in G008, there will only be two presentations. The first one, which is 1D1, those presenters will not be here this morning. So those of you who are presenting in that room, if you could just tell Michelle before you start that the first presenter will not be there. So over to our panel this morning, and I believe that Bernie Quillinan will be leading the panel. And as you know, this is the Carnegie Community Engagement Keynote Panel, perspectives from the Irish higher education institutions on the Carnegie Community Engagement Assessment Framework in Ireland. And they are doing a pilot project, and they are going to have a very informative panel this morning. So over to you, Bernie.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah, loud and clear. So I'll kick straight in. So we wanted to just tell you a little bit about our experiences, and we hope that you'll join in the discussion, and if you have any questions for us, we'll welcome them. So let's get started. First off, we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Bernie Quinlan. I'm Civic Engagement Champion in the University of Limerick, and I'm a member of this lovely team.
Hi, my name is Adele Randalls. I am from Technology in Tralee, which is south of here, 2.5 hours drive in a tourist capital of Ireland. Want to talk about our institute now or not? Yeah.
I've got stuff up.
Okay. Just my institute, we've got 70 nationalities in the Institute of Technology in Tralee studying there. It's a melting pot of different cultures. We have lots of Erasmus students in and out, and our relationship with the Sacred Heart University in Springfield has meant that we have a lot of American students linking in with the county as well, with their new base in Dingle. And the fact that we had the Skellig Michael on the coast as well, and Star Wars, and everybody saw it, we were invaded with nationalities at the moment to see that. The campus is a small campus, in the sense that we have about 3,000 students and 350 staff, but it's a bit like Cheers, if any of you remember that comedy. It's a place where everyone knows your name as such, so you know that's been very useful from a sense of our engagement with our communities. We always know who to go to in the college for who does what, because we all know everybody as such, so I think that's good. Other people might think it's not. In terms of our commitment to community engagement, we have a UNESCO chair was awarded 4 years ago to the Institute in recognition of the work that we do in including people with disabilities in mainstream sport, physical education and recreation pursuits. So that, I suppose, has meant that it's really helped our engagement process with communities, because for the last 20 years we have a lot of community engaged learning happening embedded in our programs, but it really meant that there was more emphasis on it now in the Institute and more support institute-wide for it. We're delighted with that. The Institute can always do more, so we're still pushing for more. And this week we were just excited about the announcement of our new chair, who's Eunice Kennedy Shriver's son, Tim, has taken over as our chair, our international chair, representing us now. So we're really looking forward to working with him over the next term of the UNESCO chair. Thanks.
I'm sorry, can we use the mic, please? Okay. Because I think we're the other mic.
Just in case.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Adele. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Thanks to Lorraine for organising it. Mary MacDonald-Nocton is my name. I work in the Department of Nursing and Healthcare in Athlone Institute of Technology, which would be almost similar to Tralee, except we don't have Skellig Michael or the Star Wars, unfortunately. But we are based in the centre of Ireland, and I got involved in this project because I am chair of Pillar 7, as we call it, which is part of the strategic plan for the overall college, looking at community engagement and socio-economic development. And out of that, I suppose we work with... Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Is that better? We also work, in partnership with the various communities around this Athlone, and trying to see, okay, what do they need from an educational perspective and from a service perspective, and how can we link in with the various councils in order to deliver the service that is most needed by the people. So that as a brief introduction, I'll pass you over to my colleague Marie. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Maria Kelly. I'm from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, RCSI. RCSI is an international not-for-profit health sciences institution based in Dublin and is a recognised college of the National University of Ireland. I manage the Community Engagement and Access programme there. It's called the Reach RCSI programme, which facilitates access to education for groups traditionally underrepresented at third level and aims to promote recreation and community health in the local community.
Sorry, I think there's something wrong with that. Is it because people at the back say they're not you've done?
No.
It's not better to me that they can't.
Or I just have a louder voice. My name is Lorraine and I run the community. Not that there is so much.
It all looks quite close to an after.
Yeah, I think the lights are disappearing on it every so often. Yeah, but I'm sure most people heard me speak yesterday. I work here at NUI Galway. We've just over 18,000 students, and there's 5 colleges, and I run the Community Knowledge Initiative here with my amazing team, and we have a series of different pathways that connect students, academics and community together and to share and develop knowledge.
Good morning, everybody. Is that working? Yeah. My name is Karina Ginty and I'm from Galway also. Another college that is here in Galway City called GMIT. It's Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, and we have 5 campuses all around the wide Atlantic Way. So it's a beautiful part of Ireland, and I'm sure some of you will get an opportunity to see that when you're here. So we have 2 campuses in Galway City. All our campuses have, I suppose, a specialist discipline area, and there is a strong focus on community engagement, which is embedded in various assessment strategies, and we also have an institute module, a generic module in civic engagement that our students take as an extra, I suppose, course that they do. In some cases, we have civic engagement modules embedded in our programs as well. So we have about 7,000 students. There's about 15 disciplines that we cover, and there's about 75 programs that we offer across the 5 campuses. So that's all. And we were involved in this project, this Carnegie project, over the last, it's nearly 2 years now since it all began, and delighted to be here to share our experiences.
Lovely, thank you. I better say one thing about UL. I'm so quick to introduce myself. So it's an institution of about 16,500 students and 500 staff, teaching staff. And just one important fact, that 2 weeks ago it was awarded the City of Sanctuary status, the second higher education institution in the country to be awarded that. And it's an award that's given to institutions who have hospitality and a culture around refugees and immigrants. So we're very proud that we received that status. So without further ado, before we talk into the detail, we look to Lorraine McElrath, who really was the leader and champion behind this initiative. And Lorraine will provide us now with the context, maybe in Irish policy, about why we did this and maybe a little bit about the background to the process. Yes, Lorraine.
Thanks, Bernie. Well, I guess an idea germinated in 2013 to see if we might test the appropriateness of the Carnegie classification instrument within an Irish context. We thought it might be interesting to see if it would be culturally appropriate within an Irish higher education context in terms of allowing us to measure our impact and so forth. So a proposal was put to the Carnegie Foundation in the United States to ascertain if they'd give us permission to pilot the tool on a national basis, which they did. And we subsequently got some funding from the Ireland Funds and the University of Massachusetts, NUI Galway, and the International Talawar Network, who I'm sure you're very familiar with. I guess it was an opportunity for us in Ireland to work collectively as a group. I think as institutions, maybe in all of our regions, often we don't get a chance to cooperate on joint projects. So it was an opportunity for us all to come together and to create some national narrative as well as national learnings relating to civic and community engagement within an Irish context. I guess what we should say is we're a very small country. We're just over 4 million, and we all kind of know each other, and we're kind of all related in some way, but in a sense it's kind of easy enough to create change, and we all advocated over many years for a policy change within higher education in Ireland to allow for the recognition of civic and community engagement. So in 2011 the government actually launched a national strategy for higher education to 2030, where they positioned engagement in all of its guises as the third pillar for higher education in Ireland, alongside teaching and research, teaching and learning and research. So we're operating in a very favourable climate, but I think we felt that probably the trickier area of addressing this work is actually trying to ascertain what it is that we were doing and what kind of impact are we having both in our institutions and beyond in the community. So I guess we saw this pilot project as a mechanism as well to try and capture that narrative in some way.
Thanks, Lorraine. So we'll just maybe come to Mary and just talk a little bit about what was the process like in Athlone Institute of Technology, and one important finding maybe for your institute.
Thanks, Bernie. I suppose starting from a very different base, you know, I'd like to quote our own president, Michael D. Higgins, here in Ireland, who spoke about the whole on Philosophy Day in 2016. He spoke about the philosopher Jürgen Habermas, that without the constant exercise of public deliberation, without citizens being constantly ready and enabled to submit their arguments to rational disputation, democracy will collapse. And I suppose when you think about that and you bring it into why we wanted to get involved in Carnegie, it was really, how can we make a difference? What do we mean by community engagement? And if I may briefly just give the definition that we used from Carnegie, that it describes collaboration between institutions of higher education and larger communities. But the main purpose is the partnership of college and university knowledge and resources with those of the public and private sectors. So really it's about the sharing of knowledge, the value, and this is how we got involved, that we really wanted to show, okay, the importance of engaging with communities, the importance of lecturers giving of their knowledge and time to various community groups in a voluntary capacity. So we went about trying to identify this information. We conducted a survey, and we used obviously the Carnegie survey. We were amazed at the amount that people were doing, but not saying they were doing it. And I suppose when one reflects on that, we all do certain things in a voluntary capacity, but we don't necessarily want to have it in front of the Irish Times because we're doing it out of goodwill. And I suppose what we have to think about as a college and maybe as a third level sector, how do we actually award for that contribution? And that's one of the main findings that really I would like to reiterate, that the importance of engaging, the importance of sharing the knowledge, the importance of trying to make a community a better community for the people who come from that community or who have moved into that community. So it's awarding that when somebody takes on a voluntary project, how are they awarded? And are they awarded from the point of view of giving time off to do it, away from lecturing? Or can we embed it into our lecturing, that we absolutely instill in our students the value that they can make to society? And again, this is recognising it from an academic perspective, awarding it credits that can be transferred at European level, and also ensuring, you know, at the end of the day, we're all here because we want to make society better. So that is really one of the main findings that we found. A lot of our lecturers were involved in voluntary projects, but they weren't saying it. And it has made us think, okay, how do we award for that? And most importantly then, how do we make sure that our students that we are privileged to educate gets that perspective, and also from the very beginning recognises the importance of contributing to society in a voluntary capacity. I think that would be a fair summary.
Thanks very much, Mary. We can come back to this again about, you know, what the rest of us found in terms of what it was like in our institutions, but we'll move on to Maria. Maria, maybe you might talk about if there were challenges and what they were for you in the process.
Yep, thanks, Bernie. So I co-led the project at RCSI with Dr. Mary Morgan, and I suppose our main challenge was that we would be relative newcomers to community engagement, I suppose, and this was the first time that such a data collection exercise had taken place at RCSI, so it was quite daunting as we got more familiar with the tool and how far-reaching it was across the institution, and how thorough it was. So our first challenge lay in identifying relevant stakeholders around the college who would be willing to form a committee and contribute to the data collection exercise. So the scope of the tool meant that this committee ended up being quite diverse and straddling all areas, not just the usual suspects, I suppose, that would be involved in engagement, but also finance, alumni, excuse me, HR, development office, quite different to what we would have initially envisaged. A further challenge for us was that we don't actually have an all-encompassing centre for engagement at RCSI. The programme that I managed excuse me, just deals with disadvantage, so it was quite challenging to identify all the relevant stakeholders. And sorry.
Do you want some water, Maria?
No, you are. So in general terms, with the form, you are restricted to 500 words per question. And I suppose that was quite challenging in some parts, and that you couldn't include all the information that you might want to include. Another challenge was that there was no scope for the community voice through the tool, which I suppose we found quite surprising given the nature of the project itself. Thanks. I suppose as well, this is the first time this tool was used outside of the US, so it did highlight a few areas of difference between the Irish and the US university context. Obvious one being the language. In the forum at times was quite challenging, with some things getting lost in translation along the way, just different terminology and so on. The funding models are quite different in that the funding models in the US and Ireland differ very greatly, and has an impact on the types of engagement that is valued. Here, I suppose, came across in that we would have a lot of engagement work that takes place outside of the curriculum, which we would value greatly. And the emphasis in Ireland, a lot of value is placed on the person and the project and the experience rather than monetary value, I suppose. And I suppose just some disconnects were thrown up between the definitions of engagement in Ireland and in the States.
Right, thanks very much, Maria. Right, we'll move to Karina, and maybe to talk a little to the opportunities the process afforded. Karina, if you might.
Okay, thanks, Bernie. Where do I begin? There were so many opportunities, and I suppose first off, the collaboration with the team across Ireland. So there was a mix of universities and IoTs. We're not all here today, but it was a fantastic group of people that got an opportunity to work and collaborate together and share ideas. and share approaches and tools and techniques and all of that. So that was wonderful. And the way the whole programme was designed through Lorraine and Bernie and the team gave us an opportunity to come together at various times in the year so that we could check back, see how we were doing. It kept us on track, which was great, and kept us all engaged and bought into the process. I suppose another big opportunity for us in GMIT, because we are a 5-campus structure and we're spread out across, as I said, the west of Ireland. In some cases, we're an hour and a half away from one of our campuses. So this was the first time that we got an opportunity to actually collect data across the 5 campuses and got staff engaged in a topic of interest. And we got a chance to, I suppose, uncover a lot of data through a series of focus groups and a survey, because many staff were not perhaps were not available to take part in a focus group session, but the survey was a great opportunity to do that. And when I talk about the survey, it's actually a tool that we picked up through our collaboration through UCC. UCC had done quite a little bit of work before we got involved with the Carnegie project, and they had actually designed UCC, now is University College Cork, and they had designed a really nice community engagement survey tool to capture evidence across their university. So we got an opportunity to use this in addition to the framework, the Carnegie framework. I suppose in GMIT and for others, the Carnegie framework really guided the focus groups and how the questions that were raised in the focus group. But in addition to that, there was a series of one-to-one interviews that took place with various different departments, and that actually triggered a lot of ideas, and it actually, I suppose, put a reality check on many areas that were, the science and HR and in the academic departments as well, to really rethink how do we engage students in learning, and to think about all the great work that staff are doing that goes unnoticed as well. And many would say that, I suppose one of the big things that we discovered was that we were like the secret college or the secret campus, that all this work was going on and nobody knew about it. So for us it was a great way of celebrating and sharing our ideas. I suppose it helped us to open up and share where we were going and what we needed to do in the future, and helped us to think about building a business case as to how we need to structure our systems internally and coordinate civic engagement, just like we do in other departments, the way we coordinate our services for students or counselling or finance or whatever, that we need to think about a proper coordinated unit, similar to what they have here in NUI Galway, that Lorraine manages the CKI unit. So I suppose that's where we were thinking, and developing, I suppose, a business case around that. And we're still working on that plan. So for us and for the others here, it's been a catalyst for change and trying to look at our identity once again. And it's quite timely as we develop our strategic plan in the Institute, and we're looking at an engagement pillar or a community engagement pillar within the strategic plan, and to actually help us frame that and structure that. So the insight from Elaine and John from the States, John Marshall and Elaine Ward, who were our advisors and who evaluated our data and our engagement with the framework, has been invaluable to help us think about what we need to do in the future. And is there anything else? So I suppose for once it was the first time that we got to document and record evidence. What we discovered when we engaged with the process, well, there was nothing being recorded as such. There was lots of evidence of assessment strategies and standalone modules or placement modules or different types of academic credit programs that had civic engagement recorded, but we weren't actually taking note of the partners, the outputs, the impact it was having on the community. So this process allowed us to actually have some sort of benchmark data, so that if we need to revisit this again in the future, that this will be a great help in moving us further in the future. Let me see, I think that's There's lots more, but I'm sure
It'll come. Okay, thanks, Karina. And we'll just look maybe then to Adele, the Game of Thrones area, to talk a little bit about the strengths that, Adele, that from your institution, the strengths you would have experienced from undertaking the Carnegie process.
Okay, thanks, Bernie. I suppose I'm looking at, because the opportunities, Karina covered a lot of things that I would have come up with, but I suppose the strengths in terms of the form itself, it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst to get us to really look at what we were doing, which was fantastic, and it was amazing to be involved with the whole process. The form itself was very comprehensive. It teased out everything, and it made us look at everything, which was really, really good for the Institute to take that opportunity to do that and to bring people together. So it meant that it was a buzzword, it was a conversation around the campus, and then the evidence that came through really allowed us to see what was going on. Now, I suppose what I really liked about the forum is that it made us clarify our definitions in terms of engagement. It made us think and realise that the Carnegie classification is engaged, curriculum engaged, embedded in the curriculum. And we also looked at our volunteering, we looked at our outreach, etc. We all looked at that, but this specifically was looking at embedded engagement in the curriculum. And it clarified ththings at our institute for that reason, and really brought it forward in the sense that, yes, what we need out of this is to embrace the Carnegie definition, because that's where the huge value is from an educational perspective for the holistic development of a student on their course, that they have it embedded and it's credit bearing for them as well, as see the relevance, and they have real world experience. So it made us kind of look at that, and again it was feeding into our strategic planning process as well, which meant that it's identified in there also as an outcome, an expected outcome from the strategic planning process and document, and others now will are inquiring about it and want to know about it. So I think that was really, really significant from being involved in the process. I suppose also baseline data, the term you need to, it doesn't count if it's not measured in some capacity, unfortunately, but we considered it, we looked at having data and being very kind of careful to make sure our data would reflect the quality of the work that we're doing here, the qualitative data rather than numerical number crunching, that we would hold fast on what was really significant and important in terms of what was happening in our engagement, and that got lots of consideration as well. I suppose the forum itself asked a lot of questions in regard to finance, which is always useful, to have someone else asking the questions that you can then ask internally about finance. Things can't happen in a vacuum, they can't happen unless they're supported. So the strength of the forum allowed us to kind of look at this, where we need to look and seek evidence towards this as well, and rewarding it and acknowledging that it exists, and that if it's to develop further and follow the very good examples that we have all over the US in terms of specific civic engagement offices, if we are to develop in that way and which enhances the student experience completely, to have this and to have a specific office they can go to coordinate what's happening, then we're going to need some injection of funding, and our funding models are very different to the US. We can learn a lot from what you've done and how you use the Carnegie to leverage funding in your institutions as well. And so that's been really enlightening for me, and that's a really, really strong aspect of applying this form. Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Right, thanks, Adele. I know we didn't address this specifically this week, but were there weaknesses? I hate using the word weaknesses, or were there areas that you felt, having done the Carnegie process, that they didn't translate to an Irish context? Does anyone want to take that, Mary?
Thanks, Bernie. Absolutely. And again, the framework is very good, and it was a great starting point. But there are certainly weaknesses, because some of the questions didn't really apply to us within the Irish context. And as Adele has highlighted, we have a very different funding model than the US, and we also have a very different structure. And even within the third level, if I may say so, we have a different structure between the universities and the institutes of technology, even though we are all striving for the same endpoint, to create the kind of graduate that can make such a difference to society. So some of the questions, although were well meant, were very difficult to answer because they were out of context from an Irish perspective. Obviously, we interpreted and tried to adapt them, but that was one of the kind of the negative aspects of it. But from the perspective of opening it up and having discussions and making people to be more aware of what we're doing and what we have already achieved, but where we need to go. And you know, the importance of trying to instill into our leaders and into our, you know, there is a huge emphasis now, you know, where is third level education going, and the importance of highlighting that we do need to have specific offices in place. Like we don't have a specific office. We have a vice president. I feed into that vice president. We work very well together. But from the perspective of having funding to actually go and do it, we're doing it on a wing and a prayer at present. But hopefully that it is the start of something good to come.